any question, you can just let me know. Otherwise, I assume that since I believe that you might comes from a different level of PhD, so some of you might have a very a starting point of doing PhD. So it is good for you to know what is the end process of PhD. And then for those who are in the middle, so you can refine, especially after you already develop a refined research framework, or we call it as a theoretical framework. And those who are at the end, so you can align back whether are you using or doing this process of data analysis can align with your objective of your study. So if you can see here, the research process, okay, you have a very a detail in terms of the process of developing your research. Okay, so if you're talking about the processing data, so it's actually almost end of your research process. Okay, so that's why from my experience, okay, students might get or take more time in developing, especially the theoretical framework. Okay, once you clear at that part, it's easier for you to proceed with data collection and processing data. Okay, so I think you might want to have more time to develop a very good theoretical framework. So if you're talking about discussing the data analysis, the data analysis itself is actually linked, okay, and very relevant to what you have done earlier. Okay, so from my observation, I observed that some candidates they are very eager to go to the data processing, okay, but the theoretical framework is not that clear. Okay, so when you are having this unclear theoretical framework, so the justification of process or proceeding the data analysis is quite confused. Okay, so I think today I would like to emphasize that part, because from my experience I noticed that some of the theses, the issue and problem discussed, and they develop a very clear research objective and the research question, but at the end the modeling or the processing of data is not linked to support or to answer their research question. That part, if you refer to the guideline from IPSIS, okay, how they categorize whether your thesis can be a minor correction and a major correction. So you must be very clear of your theoretical framework, okay, what you want to, at the end, what you want to gauge from your thesis, and how this data processing will help you to answer the your research question and research objective. Because when, for example, if you see the theoretical part, you notice that the discussion or the development of the theoretical part, theoretical framework must be very thorough in terms of how you develop the theoretical framework. Okay, so from there you are very clear what you want to use for this section. Okay, so even though it might be a slightly changes, for example, when you collect the data, you notice that a kind of the data is not behave as you assume. So you need to realign the research objective and the research question. Okay, so from here you will see that the approach of the data analysis must relate to your research objective and research question. Okay, so I believe that even though we are in the business faculty management, business faculty of business and management, so you notice some of the study is done using the qualitative part and some using the quantitative part. So for the part of the quantitative, you need to have a very good model in terms of establishing the discussion from the theoretical framework. So you notice that, okay, for example, if in the kind of data you use will reflect what kind of the model you need to proceed, okay? And you must bear in mind subject to the answering the theoretical, the research objective and also the research question. So for the basic ingredient of a good econometric models, okay, so these are very important, and I noticed some of the candidate or the thesis submitted for examination, some are missing, especially in terms of this part, the theoretical foundation of the analysis. So if I were appointed as the examiner, okay, my focus would be here. Okay, so you will see that the theoretical foundation of the analysis. Okay, so this component of a good econometric models, you will have start from the theory. Okay, so the theoretical foundation of the analysis must be supported by theories. Okay, so this theory is actually, if we are talking about the context of whether journals or we discuss in the context of the thesis, you need to be very clear or strong justification how you develop the theoretical framework of the study. Okay, so if that is clear, so this actually can support what kind of analysis are needed for you to derive the statistical and intuition to support the explanation of your findings. Okay. So from the theories, basically we discuss on the specification of the function that links variables together. So before you able to form or to suggest a specification of a function for a model, you need to have a very solid or strong justification of theoretical foundation of the analysis. Okay. Okay, so next, for the statistical part, this is actually, you can divide into several sections of the statistical. Okay, for example, at the earlier stage, you can provide evidence in terms of discussing about data, okay, from the current evidence, which means when you discuss in terms of your issue or problems of the study, you might want to provide some statistical evidence, okay, to support the theoretical development of your framework. Okay, so another later stage of the statistic, you want to see the screening of the behavior of your statistical or the data set. So this would provide you a clear or indicative situation whether which model should you proceed, okay, based on the behavior of the statistical from the data set, but subject to the theoretical foundation of the analysis. Okay. And then at the end, you need a very good intuition to explain the findings of your analysis. So this 4 component would give you a good econometrics model to support the theoretical framework and provide a good intuition in terms of how you want to discuss the findings. Okay, so steps in econometric analysis. As I mentioned just now, you will see that the most important stage is developing the theoretical framework. And we also notice that some perspective in terms of whether we are talking about practices, okay, across, if you're talking about UiTM, across UiTM, maybe we are talking about across faculty, or maybe across university, okay, or maybe across areas of research, okay. So you will notice that the way they write or the way they discuss in terms of the theoretical perspective slightly different, but the objective is the same, okay. So it is very important for a study to be able to have a very clear statement of hypothesis, okay, to support the next process, okay. So the statement of hypothesis is actually very important and fundamental, whether some practices they spell out clearly, but some they put together with the discussion of the theoretical development of the theoretical framework, okay. But for me, I would advise my student to clearly put the statement of hypothesis, okay, to show that how the theory is actually able to link or to support that your study is actually relevant. So I'm not so sure whether you already have this clearly in your thesis, but if you at the stage of submitting your research, okay, and you are refining your thesis, your draft, I think you must be very confirm in terms of this stage. Okay, so you read again and make sure that the statement of theory at your best is very clear, okay, to make sure that the reader can understand what is actually you are discussing from the theoretical perspective. So the data collection. So the data collection, so from a different perspective or approach of study, you might have some challenge in terms of the data collection. Whether we are talking about you are using the qualitative, okay, for example, you want to discuss in terms of the interview, semi-structured interview, or you might want to focus on the quantitative, whether you have a survey, okay, you want to collect a primary data from a certain unit of analysis, for example, representing the organization, you get a view from a certain level of representation from the company or organization, okay. But then some or most common data collection for, especially in terms of economics area, okay, or financial, okay, they are using a secondary data, okay. So for those who are focusing on the secondary data, which are related to what we are discussing today on the panel data analysis, you notice that data collection from secondary data, you must be very careful in terms of the source of your data, okay. So the relevance and the quality source of data is very important. Otherwise, the validity of your analysis and discussion is doubtful. Okay. And then after the data collection, we proceed with the model specification. So usually for model specification, when you already clearly develop or discuss the theoretical framework, okay, so you will have a very good establishment of the model specification. So the model specification, we must be very careful in terms of developing or specify the model. It should be developed based on the theoretical support, okay, which means when you develop the model specification, it must be supported by the theoretical first the theoretical framework of the study, and then it also supported from the theoretical perspective. Okay, for example, this is a brief example. Okay, for example, we have the research objective. For example, a general research objective. You would like to study in terms of establishing a relationship between X and Y. Okay, so the general objective stated that you only want to analyze relationship between X and Y with the scope of your study, okay? Regardless whether you're talking about the ASEAN countries or the OIC countries, okay, or a Malaysian or listed company, okay, or listed in Bursa Malaysia, for example. But you must notice that the model specification at this stage, okay, especially if you're talking about chapter 3, okay, you need to develop based on the theoretical perspective. Okay, so as I mentioned, if you have a general objective to analyze a relationship between X and Y, okay, so you notice that analyzing this relationship, okay, so in order to answer the objective, okay, analyzing a relationship or this relationship or the effect, so it would provide you different meanings, okay, especially in the econometrics. Okay, you want to see the relationship only or the effect. The relationship is the outcome should be positive or negative or none. Okay, whereas if you're talking about the effect, you will see that your expected component which you are trying to derive is the coefficient. Okay, so to see how much is this affect that. Okay, so for the basic start, I just want to highlight that some study, okay, especially in the PhD thesis or master's thesis, I noticed that they have a very general objective of the study, okay, but at the end they use a very a different, for example, they are trying to establish short run and long run relationship, okay, without any theoretical discussion to establish that. Okay, meaning to say, if at the first place you discuss in term or you try to establish between X and Y, okay, so you already put a very good discussion between X and Y, but none of the discussion of the relationship mention about short run and long run. But at the end of your analysis, okay, in the chapter 3, in chapter 4, suddenly you discuss about short run and long run. Okay, so this would be a kind of you need to decide what actually are you trying to do. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that the model specification must be aligned with your research objective. Okay, so if you decide to discuss about establishing the short run and long run relationship between two variables, X and Y. So it must be supported by theoretical, okay? Because X might not have any theoretical discussion of relationship in the short run between X and Y, okay? By nature or by evidence of the data set, and also the empirical as well as the theoretical, okay? There is none of the establishment to prove that there is a short run relationship, okay? So you must be very clear, meaning to say your model or data analysis must actually derive from what are your research objective, okay? Because they will be support to answer the research objective, okay? So the model specification are the same, where the specification must be supported by theoretical perspective. Okay, so after you are clear with the model specification, we proceed with the testing and the diagnostic. Okay, so the diagnostic testing is actually to show the validity of your result. Okay, because at the end, if you're talking about the statistical or the econometric analysis, okay, the most important question is that how valid is your findings? Okay, so for example, the findings you are talking about analyzing or quantifying the effect of from X on Y. Okay, so the objective is actually to derive a coefficient, okay, to represent the value of effect. Okay, but if you read carefully in terms of the econometric analysis, okay, the focus is to produce uh, the coefficient which we call it as a robust coefficient, okay, or valid coefficient. So the question is that how valid is the findings, okay? So that's why, for example, as examiner, when you read the thesis, you will notice that uh, the discussion on chapter 1, okay, or chapter 2 is very important. Chapter 2, literature review, and you are developing discussion of the theoretical, okay, and then you develop the theoretical framework in chapter 3. It's not necessary chapter 3, mean the next component, and then this would give you a very uh, uh, clear information of how how valid is the theoretical framework of your study. Okay, so after you do the analysis, which as I mentioned previously, the analysis, the objective is to support the research objective, meaning to say is that choosing the model specification or what kind of modeling you should you should use must align with your research objective. Okay, so once you obtain the result, okay, another question, the important question is how valid is your result. Okay, so if your result is not valid, okay, the interpretation and the discussion in findings is actually not valid. Okay, so that one you must be very clear and careful. Okay, because from my experience, I noticed that some candidate is quite anxious to do a different or to explore different kind of modeling, okay, but it's actually not necessary and not actually needed to answer the research objective. Okay, so if you want to choose specific model specification, it must be aligned with research objective. Tadi ada satu soalan. Okay. Okay, okay. So, okay, this one, the research objective, the moderation relationship. Okay, moderation relationship. Okay, I'm not so sure if you're talking about the moderation relationship. But when you're talking about the moderating effect, or we are talking about the interaction effect, okay? So if you like to have a moderator to effect in the model, okay? Usually from econometric perspective, we are talking about the interaction effect or the moderating effect, okay? With theory, which theory I should use if, let's say, IV to DV, theory A, and MV to DV, theory B. Okay. Sebenarnya saya tak berapa faham sangat soalan, tapi what I can say is that for example, at the stage of the theoretical framework, okay, so when you establish, you will see that if you're talking about the moderating effect, okay, the moderating effect or the mediator, okay, a different effect, okay, of this direct relationship, and we have indirect relationship, okay. So if you're talking about direct, so the IV on DV, okay. If indirect, so you might want to interact of one variable, for example, x1, with another variable, okay, on y. Okay, so that one is a kind of interaction effect. So we have a different discussion in terms of interaction effect, whether the interaction is at a dummy effect or you want to discuss about the value effect of the interaction. Okay, so that one, the theoretical part, if I get your question correctly, if theory A say the IV to DV, which means that is the direct effect. Okay, theory B is another indirect effect. Okay, because basically the theoretical part is, the first one is to establish the theoretical framework, where you need to support the theory to say that there is a direct effect, and you also have indirect effect. So the indirect effect, one of the example is using the interaction. Okay, so so you need to support both theories. Okay, because for direct effect, you are establishing one hypothesis. Okay, and then the interaction effect, okay, you develop another hypothesis. Okay, so that one is actually a kind of the theoretical establishment of the theoretical framework. Okay, so you must be very clear on that. Okay, another theoretical part, okay, when you develop, discuss in the methodology, okay, for example, in terms of the model specification, okay, for the model specification, if you discuss in terms of, after you are very clear with the theoretical framework which you develop, okay, with the support of the theory, for example, theory A and theory B, okay, direct effect and indirect effect, okay, different hypotheses. And then you would like to discuss in terms of, for example, you want to see using the issue of the model, okay, to capture short run and long run, okay, the effect of short run and long run. So discussing the effect of short run and long run, you also need to have another theoretical perspective to support that evidence to say the establishment of that kind of relationship is valid, okay, using the theoretical perspective. Okay, so I hope I answer your question. Okay, so types of data. Okay, so this is what I already mentioned in terms of experimental and observational data. Okay, for example, we discuss in terms of lab, or maybe you can get this information from a different primary sources. Okay, and then we have a cross-sectional and time series. Okay, so the cross-sectional, I believe you able to understand what is the cross-sectional, okay, because this is very basic. So we try to visualize the cross-sectional, okay, data on different entity for a single time period, okay. For example, if you're talking about collecting the data using survey for a specific point in time, okay, on many number of we call it as a cross section, okay. Or the N, we are talking about N is organization or person, okay. So for example, you want to get survey to get opinion or information from students, 1,000 students, okay. So the student number of student N or the organization would refer to the cross section, okay, and the specific point in time, which means the collection of data is done at one point in time. Okay, for example, you have a duration of three months. Okay, and then for time series, so the time series we will have the basic time series. Okay, n is equals to 1. Okay, that is the unit of analysis of the organization, for example, a country. Okay, but you have a more t, okay, over time. Okay, so you will see that t can be in any form. For example, if you are having a discussion of the financial data, you will see that the behavior of data or the nature of data, you might have a different behavior as compared to other research area. Okay, so for financial data, you might have, for example, daily data, weekly data, okay, monthly or yearly. Okay, whereas for economics, the most common is the yearly, and you might have some information is in monthly or quarterly. So you notice that a different area of research, they might have a common behavior of data, okay, for example, in terms of a different frequency. Okay, so for that is the difference between cross-section, okay, and time series. So I would like also to share for the cross-section data, okay, the cross-sectional data, you'll notice that the data is obtained at a specific point in time, okay, which means the issue of a series is less, okay, as compared to the variation of the N, okay. And here, for example, if you collecting data for 100 or for 1,000 of students, or for 300 or 1,000 listed, 500 listed companies. Okay, so the N itself, you might notice that the cross-sectional itself is actually having a variation. Okay, variation of the behavior of, for example, if you're talking about the student of individual. Okay, so from here, you will notice that the cross-sectional data, the issue is, the most common issue is we are talking about the homogeneity of the error term, because you have a different behavior of N, okay? But the T is at one point, okay? Whereas for time series data, okay, for time series data, the data itself, you have a variation in terms of the time. Okay, for example, the frequency of daily of a stock. Okay, you will see the behavior. Okay, change in a stock. Okay, daily observation. Okay, so another example, for example, you want to see the behavior of economic growth of a country. So the country, the cross-section behavior, the homogeneity of the we call it as the error, for example, is, if you have n, it's only 1, okay, equals to 1, okay. Whereas the error term would differ, okay, over time, okay. So the longer time you have, okay, so there is a possibility that the error of each observation are different. Okay, so that's why if you're talking about the cross-sectional data, you are talking about the homogeneity, okay, of the behavior, okay, of your observation, okay. And then for time series, usually we discuss in terms of the serial correlation of the observation of the error across or over time. Okay, so these are the basic issue of the cross section and the time series. Okay, so today, since we are discussing about panel data, okay, so by definition, the panel data itself is actually pulling between cross section and time series. Okay, so you must expect that the combination or the pulling of these two type of data would provide or would cause the two main issue, that is the homogeneous or heterogeneous, okay, heterogeneity, or we call it, we expect to have a homogeneous of the behavior, okay, plus the serial correlation or autocorrelation, okay. So instead of, if you having the different data set differently, so you can expect that the main issue are there. Okay, when you pull the data, you need to manage these two issue of econometrics, okay, at the same time. Okay, ada soalan tak? Nak kat sejam okay. And then balance panel, okay. If you notice from the raw result, okay, if you are using whether EViews or Stata, for example, you notice they provide information whether the data is the data set is balanced panel or unbalanced panel. Okay, so balanced panel means that all the observation is complete, and then unbalanced means some missing observation across pooling of data. Okay, okay, so before we go to the detail of the data analysis, the most important thing is at the stage where you already get what you want to do for your study. Okay, so the discussion of establishment, the issue or the problem statement, okay, not only from perspective of evidence. Okay, for example, you provide evidence of this issue through statistical evidence, okay, data to show that the issue is very crucial, but you must also provide the theoretical perspective or argument, okay, to say that your study is very important and valid to establish this kind of perspective, okay. So this is example of where we get the issue of a situation where there is inflation. Okay, this one, as we know that the definition of inflation itself is a general increase in price. Okay, So the general increase in price, meaning to say, if we are assessing for a country, you will have the value of inflation is representing on average. Okay, so in this study or discussion of this paper, saying that how the inflation, where it reflect in average of a country, okay, can actually affected the population or the people differently. Okay, so this is what this study is all about. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that you can provide to establish the issue and the problems of your study through statistical evidence, but it must be supported by the theoretical argument. Okay, so another example from Bank Negara Malaysia. Currently, you will notice that we are talking about issue of the fintech. So this one is actually information from report from Bank Negara Malaysia to provide support to the social ecosystem in Malaysia. Okay, what I'm trying to show is that if you're talking about doing research in terms of the fintech to support the ecosystem of social finance, the discussion or evidence can also be supported by the relevant authority to discuss the issue. Okay, for in this case, we have Bank Negara Malaysia. Okay, kita boleh break 5 minutes. Kita habiskan sejam setengah
Okey,
atau
Doktor.
okay. Ada soalan sebelum tu? Okay, kalau tak ada, kita stop sekejap 5 minutes
Okey, Doktor.
Okay, so kita continue. Saya rasa macam kena skip on time series. Okay, so we continue the basic discussion of the regression analysis. Okay, so regardless whether you use different types of data, okay, usually you notice that they are talking about the regression analysis. Okay, whether you are using survey or you are using time series, cross-sectional or panel data, the analysis you are using is the regression analysis. Okay, so this is actually a basic of nature of the regression analysis. Okay, so you notice that this is very important for you to understand what is the regression analysis. Okay, and then you also have you must be able to differentiate between regression analysis and the, for example, the causation. Okay, so if you from the statistical area, okay, interest, this is very differentiative component of what you plan to do for your analysis. Okay, so the nature of regression analysis. So based on the definition, so this is a very basic definition from Gujarati. It defines the regression analysis, the study of the dependence of one variable on one or more other variables. Okay, so with a view to estimating and or predicting the population mean or average value of the dependent variable in terms of the known or fixed in repeated sampling value of explanatory variables. Okay, so the definition is quite long, but for econometric perspective, if you're talking about the regression, okay, we are talking about focusing on the dependence of one variable on one or more other variable. Okay, so like what your friend asked about whether which one to use, the theory A or theory B. So you're talking about regardless whether the variable is a direct relationship or indirect relationship. If you're talking about the x1, for example, the direct relationship on y, okay, x1 on y. So we're saying that that is a kind of a study of dependence of one variable on, okay, one or more other variables. Okay, so there is no issue whether you should confuse in terms of which theory to support, because for every variable include in the model, it must have a hypothesis development, okay, to support the establishment of the dependence of one variable on other variables. Okay, meaning to say your IV, whether they're talking about direct or indirect relationship, they are IV. Okay, you want to analyze, okay, a set of variable, one or a set of variables on other variables. Okay, so there is a general definition of the regression analysis. Okay, so if you read further in terms of with a view to estimating and or predicting, okay, the population mean or average value. Okay, so you notice that we are talking about we are estimating and predicting the population mean or average value. Okay, so if you recall in the earlier stage, okay, the discussion of the issue and problems of your study, okay, you're talking about the issue of population, okay, representing the overall behavior of your scope of your study, okay. But then when you proceed with the regression analysis, you must bear in mind the analysis itself is actually referring to the behavior of the sample. Okay, so in this context, what Gujarati is highlighting is that the regression analysis, okay, a view to estimating and or predicting the population mean and average value. Okay, we are talking about you must be very clear in terms of your analysis is using the sample, and you are actually intend to estimate or predict the population mean or average value. Okay. Okay. This one tak ada soalan. Okay. Okay. Oops. Okay. So another perspective, if you compare between regression and causation, okay, the regression itself, you're talking about dependence of one variable, that is your DV, okay, on one or more. Okay, so that's why you can have multivariate or univariate modeling. Okay, so if you have more than one independent variables. Okay, and then the difference between regression and causation, here it states that a statistical relationship, however strong and however suggestive, can never establish causal connection. Okay, the ideas of causation must come from outside statistic. Okay, we are talking about the theoretical discussion. Okay, so regardless whether you are talking about the regression itself, okay, we cannot only provide the evidence of the statistical evidence to discuss the behavior of the relationship or the dependency of variables. Okay, the most important thing is the theoretical evidence, okay, or discussion. Okay, at postgraduate level, I would say master and PhD, in the thesis, it is very important for you to clearly spell out, okay, the establishment of the dependency, okay, using the theoretical support evidence. Okay, otherwise, for me, I would say that we can challenge the theoretical framework. Okay, so if the theoretical framework is not valid, okay, the hypothesis is also not valid or not properly established, I would say that the research findings is invalid. Okay, otherwise, if you able to prove that the establishment of the theoretical perspective to support your findings. And then we have regression versus correlation. Okay, so for regression, because you notice that the regression, you regress, okay, a set of variables on to see the dependency of one variable, okay, on one or other or a set of variables. Okay, so for regression analysis, the key word is that you are assuming an asymmetric of dependency. Okay, meaning to say and asymmetric in the way the dependent and explanatory variable are treated. Okay, because when you develop the model specification, you specify the model, you already supported the establishment of the model based on the theoretical perspective, whereby you can say that X is probably depends on the movement. Okay, so you will see that you want to see a set of variable, explanatory variable, which means this set of variable able to explain the variation of the dependent variable. Okay, so the asymmetrical here we are talking about, you already confirmed that the explanatory variable is this set. Okay, will cause, will give effect, on the dv, which means the dependent variable depends on a set of variable. So likewise for correlation analysis, you treat the two variables are symmetrical. So that's why for correlation analysis, we don't really discuss whether if you plot, for example, a simple correlation, among the variables, you'll notice that the value of the correlation is actually representing the coefficient, and also, or the strength of correlation as well as the sign. But it doesn't mean that which cause which. They only showing the, but because you can simply take any value, of data representing anonymous, and you plot the correlation, it provide a sign and also the coefficient. So you notice that if you're talking about the correlation analysis, you are assuming that the variables are symmetrical. It does not cause, does not lead to dependency on which. So I hope you can understand that, unless you have question. So yang ini saya laju sikit, lepas tu saya terus masuk ke panel data. So basically, so this is the most common method, or we call it estimator, use, for the regression analysis. So you will have many estimator. This is the most common. That is, we are using the ordinary least square. So if you read a basic econometrics textbook, the discussion of the OLS, why this is a kind of a very common estimator, because they have several advantage. You can read further, but basically this is a quite simple estimator, to be used to provide proceed with the regression analysis. So basically, what I'm trying to show here is that method of a method or estimator using the OLS, is actually focusing of summation of minimum error square. So here, if you can see, this is example, because you need to understand the basic concept of the estimator, because commonly if you talking about, for example, PhD level and also a different level, you are trying to capture a different objective or issue of the study. So sometimes you are required to use a different model specification, but whatever the model specification you want to use, you must understand the basic concept or fundamental of what is actually the regression analysis and how it works. So this is the simple and the most common estimator used in the regression analysis. There is OLS. So basically what I'm trying to show here is that this method, the approach is that they are trying to get the most minimum sum squared errors. Okay, so if you read the basic econometrics textbook, okay, the earlier part they are discussing about the errors. Okay, so the error term, okay, for example, here you can see that the regression analysis itself is actually you are uh, estimating, or you are trying, or the aim is to estimate or to predict, okay, the population of mean, okay, value, okay. So you notice that in order to predict or estimate the model, okay, what is actually you are trying to achieve is that the best fitted line to represent the best representation of the average mean value of your population. Okay, so that is the technical part of the OLS. Okay, because in the actual situation, this one is very clear when you see that only one line. But if you discuss in terms of the basic econometric, you will see that they might have a different 100 lines to see that where is the most or the best fitted line to represent the behavior of this regression analysis. Okay, the relationship between a set of variables on Y. Okay, so due to that, in order to choose the best or representative of the best fitted line, so the way they calculate, okay, it works through calculating minimum squared error, okay, minimum summation of squared error. So those line who provide the most minimum summation of squared error will be representing the best fitted line. That is your estimated equation. Okay, so that's why kalau you tengok, you collect data, a set of data X and Y, okay, and then you plot to see the behavior, okay, and then you regress. Okay, so regardless whether they are time series or cross-sectional, or if you're talking in the case of the pooling the data, we are talking about the panel data, you pull between cross-section and time series. Okay, you will have a set of data. For example, 100 countries, okay, for 10 years. Okay, so the number of your observation would be 100 times 10. Okay, what is 1000? So, but at the end, when you regress, you will have only one estimator. Okay, I mean the best fitted line is one. So the model the result you will have the average value of the representing the information. Okay, so the estimated line or the estimated equation, you will have only one value of coefficient. Okay, if you have many independent variables, so you have many, I'm talking about one value, mean the average value. Okay, so the average value itself is actually representing the data set. Okay. Okay, so this is quite technical, but you must able to understand that when you proceed from data processing, which means you already confirm with your theoretical framework that is X1 up to X6 is affecting Y. Okay, your dependent variable, a set of explanatory variable affecting your dependent variable. But now you collect the data, you arrange your data, you clean your data, and then you see the basic behavior of your data, and you run the regression. Okay, and then you do the robustness test, okay, and diagnostic test, and you have a final estimated equation. Okay, So this is estimated equation, the final one representing your findings in order for you to answer your research objective. Okay, so it is very important for you to understand that in the regression equation itself. Okay, so if you can see here, I hope you can see it clearly. So this is a simple regression model, okay, where you only have one independent variable on dependent variable, okay. But what I'm trying to say is that previously you will have y can plus intercept, okay, the coefficient which you would like to focus or aim to get the coefficient plus the error. Okay, once we have had here showing there is an estimated equation. Okay, so this estimated equation is represented the best fitted line of your model. Okay, but this diagram is actually to show you that, okay, the value of estimated y is actually representing a composition of different value or meanings. Okay, so you will notice that here, okay, you have the estimated value of y, okay, and then the mean value of y. Okay, another portion is the difference between actual value and the estimated value. Okay, so this is, okay, this is the error. Okay, from here the error is actually the actual y. Actual here is your observation. Okay, because you collect a set of data for dependent variable and independent variable. Okay, minus the estimated y. Okay, here is actually to show that the error is actually the actual observation, okay, minus with the estimated observation. Okay, if the regression able to minimize the error, okay, so we can say that that is the most best fitted line. Okay, so this is what I'm trying to show, that the estimated line is actually representing a component of different component. Okay. Okay, so next, the measure of goodness of fit. Okay, so basically, when you run the regression, you will focusing on a measure of goodness of fits of the model. Okay, so this one we need to have a different session if you're talking about to get detail in terms of what is the, why we use t-test, okay, z-test, and also the f-test. Okay, so but basically we are talking about testing the overall model and testing the individual coefficient. Okay, so for a basic representation of the goodness of fit, okay, at a basic level we can say the R square. Okay, so if you're talking about developing the model just now, okay, model specification, which mean if you have a good establishment model specification, okay, it would reflect with R square. Okay, but further you might want to discuss further in terms of whether we are talking about the adjusted R square and why my R square is too low. That one we have a different discussion, but this is a basic component of what you need to focus. Okay. Okay, so saya skip for okay, so saya ke sini terus. Sini nampak okey tak?
Okay, Doctor.
Okay. So before I proceed to the application of data analysis, sebab saya akan habiskan by pukul 12 maksimum Kalau tak ada, kita just masuk kepada panel data analysis. Okay, sebenarnya plan saya nak discuss time series juga, just to link with the panel data. Tidak apa, due to the limitation of time. So we proceed direct to the panel data analysis. Okay. So as we mentioned that the panel data analysis, by definition, by Baltagi, the pooling of observation on a cross-section of household, countries, firm, over several time periods. Okay, so the most common example, for example, if you want to study a set of data over time, okay, which means your T is more than 1, okay, with many number of cross section. Okay, for example, you want to study many firms, okay, more than one. So, but we can say more than one. Countries, household, or another set of behavior, for example, region, okay. So we can pull the observation, and the analysis will be a panel data analysis. Okay. So advantages and disadvantages. Okay. Okay, panel data allows you to control for variable you cannot observe or measure. Okay, in time variant. Factors like gender, country, okay, access to shore, or variable that change over time, but not across entity. Okay, it accounts for individual heterogeneity. So why they discuss in terms of advantage and disadvantage of panel data, because when you pulling the observation from cross section and the series, okay, so you must bear in mind the major issue of the cross section. We are talking about the individual heterogeneity. Okay, the heterogeneity itself is actually we refer to the error term which not constant. Okay, but in the layman term, what we can state that the heterogeneity itself is the variation of the characteristic, okay, of each individual. Okay, so for example, if you study a set of data where you derive the set of data from many countries, okay, so by default the behavior of each individual countries are definitely different. Okay, so that's why that's why we can say that there would be the individual heterogeneity. So you must bear in mind, if you're talking about the econometrics, basic econometrics, we have a classical regression assumption, which means when you want to analyze using the regression analysis, we are assuming, okay, some classical assumption. So before you proceed to do your analysis, you try to read and understand the basic classical assumption. Okay, so and you can appreciate what I'm trying to discuss, especially for example in terms of the individual heterogeneity. So what I'm trying to show here, so what are the problems if you pull the data? Okay, so for the cross section, you will have a different behavior of the observation. So the individual observation, so we can say that there would be definitely a situation where you have the individual heterogeneity, okay, which means the error term is not constant across individual. So here, this is very important for you to carefully manage when you pull the data, okay? And then we discuss in terms of advantage, okay? Data more informative, more variation, okay? Hence increase the precision of the estimate, okay? Because in general rules, you can say that if you do the basic econometrics, you will notice when you run the regression and then you check whether there is an issue in the econometrics, for example, if you're talking about the misspecification of your model, or we are talking about the multicollinearity, okay, one of the suggestion is to increase the number of observation, okay? So the number of observation, to increase the number of observation is good, okay, in terms of it can handle several basic econometric issues, but then in the case of you are doing your PhD thesis, it must align with the scope of your study, and the scope of your study must align with the research objective, okay? So I would say that we can conclude whether if you are the scope of your study as well as the model specification, okay, must actually link with the research objective. Okay, so kalau saya nampak some student awal dia dah very clear dengan sampai the theoretical framework dah clear. When they start to collect data and then they do the pre-analysis, so they are confusing to manage that because they don't have any referral point in terms of is it the best specification? Is it a good model? Okay, should I use this technique, okay, of estimation? Okay, so the decision of that confusion, you must relate back to your research objective. Okay, so kena bertenang and then you refer back to your research objective. What are this study are trying to achieve? What are the aim of this study? Okay. So if the aim of this study is only to capture the relationship, so what are the appropriate model specification, okay, to use in order to answer the research objective, okay? Because along the way, you will notice that the set of data is not behave as what you expect, okay? Because when you read some journals, they can explain very good in terms, and you are using the same set of data with some additional, you notice that it does not behave what have been discussed earlier in the journal. Okay, so that is the challenge, but then you can manage it as long as at the end the question of the data analysis is how valid is your result. Okay, so that is what you need to prove. Okay, otherwise your result findings is not valid, and the findings is also the discussion of findings and conclusion is not valid. Okay. And then for disadvantage, data availability. Okay, data availability might lead to the unbalanced data. Okay, for example, if you want to study across region, okay, or for example, you want to study listed company, okay, which or the Sharia compliance company, okay. So you will notice that if you select, for example, top 100 Sharia listed company, you will notice that you need to have number of companies. So if you're talking about 100 listed, so the 100 is N, and the T maybe you want to cover, for example, for 5 years. So the 5 years, the issue is that some companies are not listed in that duration. So you have some what we call it as a pre-analysis to justify why the scope of your study is that. Okay, because you need to cover with a specific period and to make sure that all the companies selected are relevant to the scope of your study. Okay. And then another common challenge on the data availability is that, for example, if you study in terms of across global, okay, across global, so you will notice some data, for example, if you are using secondary data, you can get a set of data from World Bank, for example, but some due to the disparity of the economics or access to the information, you will notice some countries the data is not available. Okay, so you need to clearly explain the exclusion of the countries. Okay, you cannot simply say that from 400 observation, you only take 300 because the data is not available. Okay, so what does it mean by the data is not available? So you must clearly explain the exclusion, okay, of 100 observation. Okay. Okay, so disadvantage, another one is the measurement errors and self-selection bias. Okay. Okay. Okay, so this is example. Okay. Okay, so you will have the example between okay information to show that okay positive states desirable economic climate with low divorce rate and low welfare payment. Okay. And the dynamic relationship between the same information within a state differ dramatically from a cross-sectional relationship between states. Okay, so you notice that this, what I'm trying to show is that when you pull the data, okay, the effect would have a different dimension. Okay, what we call it as a different dimension, you will have within dimension and between dimension. Okay, so if you notice, or for those who already run your regression and complete your data analysis, you will have observation that if you run the panel data analysis, they will have, for example, the R-square value in terms of overall and the value in terms of within or between. Okay, so the between itself is actually showing that across group, okay, between, and then the within itself is over time, okay, on the same observation or the same cross section. Okay, so that's why you will have in panel data analysis, they provide you information on the overall result between and within. Okay, so this is some example to show that ada 15 minutes again. Okay, example data. Okay, the subject area, unit of analysis, description. Okay, saya ambil satu lah. Okay. Okay, contoh kat sini, examine changes capital structure before and after the market crash for different types of cross-holding structure. Okay, so you will see that the subject area is finance. Okay, and you take information on the capital structure. Okay, so you have N is 361 Japanese firms over T for 15 years. So this is the duration. So your observation is that N, okay, is equals to T times the cross section. Okay, so that is the panel data. Okay, so boleh faham ini? Okay, so kalau kita guna cross section, so N kita adalah 9 sahaja. Okay, so kalau kita time series for one airline, you obtain information from T equals to 11. So your observation is only 11. Okay, so that is what we have mentioned in terms of the advantage of using the panel data. When you pull the data, meaning to say that you are talking about increasing the number of observation, okay, and the scope of your study is wider. Okay. Okay. Okay, saya try to finish by 12 so kalau ada soalan lain nanti tadi saya tengok ada yang nak apa slide saya boleh share. Okay. So saya sikit lagi saya habiskan dua ni, saya just nak tunjukkan apa example and why it is very important. Okay. Sebab saya rasa kalau macam kita nak tunjuk panel data detail tu, maybe having a workshop is better because saya terus boleh tunjuk hands on. Okay, but in terms of very limited within two hours ni, it is good for you to emphasize on the theoretical argument why you need to or why you want to proceed with panel data analysis. Okay. So this is example. I've read this paper many times. Okay, if you can get this, it is available. Okay, saya pun ada copy, tapi you can just get from the library. Okay, the database. Okay. Here, example of when you read the abstract. Okay. Okay. So it reflects business cycle and bank lending pro-cyclicality in a dual banking system. Okay, so usually the title itself is reflecting what you are doing. Okay, so the aim of this study, they want to analyze the bank lending behavior over the business cycle. Okay, so the business cycle itself is you will have up and down of the business cycle. Okay, and they want to see how the lending behavior or the lending behave. Okay, in a dual banking system. Okay, so this is quite 2016, but at that time, if you notice that sometimes one of the justification of doing the panel data is that the data availability. Okay, so for those who are familiar with the Islamic banking or Islamic finance, they have a very limited due to the constraint of the data availability. Okay, so that's why at the earlier stage of the analysis and the paper journals discussing about Islamic finance, you'll notice that they are using panel data analysis because the availability of data is not able to provide a very long period of observation. Okay, to analyze the behavior of Islamic finance. Okay, the behavior of the component within the Islamic finance. Okay, meaning to say maybe it is due to the new establishment of that area. Okay, so when you do your PhD, you will also notice that some of my students they plan to do some research, and then they found that after several workshop and also reading, they found that there's a very limited availability of the discussion in that area. Okay, so you might notice that what I'm trying to say that by nature of the area, okay, you might have that constraint, which means by default the constraint of the data availability is there, maybe due to the industry itself is an infant industry. Okay, so due to that, instead of using or analyzing the cross section or the time series per se, you might want to pull the data. So this is another perspective of justification why you are pulling the data. So if you're talking about in Malaysia, in 2016, the data is still very limited and is not long enough to do the observation for the time series. Okay. Okay. So you will have here, since they are only focusing on Malaysia, okay, but they use 21 conventional banks and 16 Islamic banks. Okay, so you will have here 37. Okay, 37 of cross section. Okay, so meaning to say, in Malaysia, but the observation or the unit of analysis is banks. So due to the limitation, and also they discuss about conventional banks and Islamic banks. Okay, so they combine. So this example also you can extend your analysis, whether you want to combine the analysis, or you can also combine and do separate analysis across different types of banks. Okay, so it's up to you how you want to explore the possibility of enrich the analysis, but whatever, it must go back to your research objective or your aim of your study. Okay. Okay. Okay, so what I'm trying to show here is that this example, okay, using the pooling of data for Islamic for banks in Malaysia. Okay, so they have 37 number of banks. Okay, and the period cover from 2001 up to 20013. So this is the T. And then applying dynamic GMM estimator. Okay, so just now we are discussing about the OLS estimator, and now they are using the dynamic estimator. So the model specification, okay, will follow what this requirement of the model, okay, but in the discussion in this journal, okay, you notice that the author is clearly explained why they use the dynamic GMM estimator. Okay, in the case of this, okay, we find the aggregate loans by banks to be pro-cyclical in the conformity of the existing study. So this is the findings. Okay, so another example. Okay, so this is also pulling the data. Okay, so you have okay 45 Islamic banks from 13 countries. Okay, So from here, you also can get some discussion in terms of control variable, for example. Okay, so if you notice the earlier article, they are using different banks, but in the same regulatory framework of a financial framework in Malaysia. Okay, so you notice that if you are talking about the control variable, all banks are in the same the framework, okay, the regulatory framework. Okay, so you will notice that the value of GDP, inflation are commonly affecting, okay, different banks. Okay, whereas in this case, you will notice that for 45 Islamic banks across 13 countries, so the information you get from the banks, okay, definitely different, but the common variable, for example, we are talking about the economic variable, okay, the macro economic variable is also different across your sample, okay. So that one you must be very careful to discuss why you want this can be the control variable to your scope of your study. Okay. Okay. So I think that's all for today. Okay. So kita ada banyak lagi. Nanti kalau faculty allow us to do a discussion for panel data, we can proceed with the theory. Okay, theory dah okay kan? Theory and also the hands-on. Okay. So before saya stop, kita pergi kepada soalan. Okay. Tak ada soalan. Okay.
Ada doktor.
Okay, tak ada? Ada?
Ada doktor tu.
Di mana?
Will the results be impacted if I don't have the same number of observations for each cross-sectional variable and over the same period?
Okay.
Question from Nur Fatin Shahida.
Will the result be impacted if I don't have the same number of observation? Okay. Dia macam ni, kan? Result memang akan berbeza, okay? Whether you have different number of variables, okay? Okay, for example, by default, if you have more independent variable, okay, your R square is definitely will increase. So dia ada direct effect on that, okay? And then if you have more number of observation, so technically from econometric perspective, okay, it would give you better result because you have more observation. That is by rule, by default, or we can say that generally we can say that the higher number of observation would give you better result. Kenapa better result? Because it represent, okay, better information from your scope of your study. Okay, so contoh kalau saya ambil, you nak study pelajar postgraduate di UiTM ada katakanlah 10,000, your sample is 1,000 as compared to your sample is 2,000. Okay, so we can expect that the higher number of observation, 2,000, will give a better reflection of the behavior of the population. So dalam econometric, it's very important for you to understand that your regression is on the sample. Okay, so the higher number of your sample will represent, okay, better reflection of the average of the population. Okay, itu secara general lah. Tapi kalau dia tanya soalan ni ada dua I don't have the same number of observation. So the effect dia, if you don't have the number of observation across sectional or over time, maksudnya ada setengah country tak cukup untuk cover keseluruhan period of time tu, So by default, uh, your data set is known as an unbalanced panel data. Okay, so you still can proceed. Okay, cuma the missing observation. Okay, what are the optimal missing number of observation would affect the overall findings. Macam tu. Itu secara general teorinya macam tu. Okay, maksudnya memang kita, it is common in the panel data, you might have unbalanced panel. So bila you tak cukup, bila you run dalam result tu nanti dia dah tulis unbalanced panel. Okay. Cuma how unbalanced we can take. So maksudnya berapa banyak observation yang missing sampai you boleh proceed dengan minimal number of observation for that cross section. Okay, contoh katakan kita ada 100 company, okay, untuk 20 tahun. So company yang 99 untuk 20 tahun tu dia hanya ada 5 observation contoh. So yang lain tu, so bila you run nanti, you plot, dia akan tulis kat situ unbalanced panel. So unbalanced panel okay, tapi adakah company yang 99 tu akan give representing the sample of the population? Itu persoalannya. So that one you need to answer based on the justification. But generally, there will be unbalanced panel, but what is the optimal unbalanced panel? Dia punya clue adalah can it affect to represent, okay, that sample to represent the population behavior? So you kena jawab benda tu. Kalau you rasa okay, then you can proceed. Kalau you rasa tak, there will be exclusion for that sample. Okay, sample tu I refer to the specific observation 99 tu. Okay. So lain ada soalan? So saya rasa saya akan stop kat sini. Kalau tak ada, I think that's all. Kalau you all nak ni, you can contact Fatin. Fatin kan? Ke Sarah, ke Farah tadi? Fatin
Saya, Sarah.
Sarah Okay. So that's all, Sarah. Thank you very much. Anything boleh contact Sarah. Sarah akan inform saya. Okay.
InsyaAllah, Doktor, kalau dah isi Google Form, if you guys fill up the Google Form, then we will have your email if you want the recording and also the slide.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Salam, Doktor. Thank you so much.
Salam sikit, Doktor.
Okay.